Well, the religion of peace has struck again from the sun. Sick and depraved, London terror attack condemned by Theresa May as British-born terrorist kills 3 in Westminster rampage. And this guy basically drove his car into a bunch of people and then basically wound up crashing, basically, and got out and had a knife, wound up killing a police officer. It was a tragic event. Suspect was shot by cops after leaving 29 injured, many catastrophically. A sick and depraved terrorist killed 3 people and injured 29 in a rampage on Parliament that knifed Britain in the heart. Theresa May condemned the maniac who mowed down pedestrians in London at 70 miles an hour, quote unquote, on Westminster Bridge before storming Parliament and stabbing a police officer to death. The heroic cop who tried to stop the attacker was named as Married Father P.C. Keith Palmer. Also among the victims was Aishea Fraid, 43, who was believed to have been killed as she traveled to pick up her children from school. Speaking this morning after the devastation, the PM admitted the British-born lone wolf attacker had previously been investigated by MI5 but had been dismissed as a peripheral figure, quote-unquote. Mark Rowley, National Lead for Counterterrorism Policing and MET Acting Deputy Commissioner, said the attack was, quote, inspired by Islamic terrorism. He added that hundreds of police officers were involved in the investigation to check his background and trace his known associates. So, this is just another horrific example of how people get radicalized by extremist views, extremist interpretations of Islam, and wind up doing something horrible like this. This happens all too often, and it's a serious problem. And unfortunately, the response that you get many times from people in the media, from key officials in government, is they basically take the stance that it's because people in Europe or in America are intolerant, and because we're intolerant to basically Islam, to Muslims, that's why these kind of events happen, and that if we were more tolerant, that this stuff wouldn't happen. And that's a ridiculous assumption, first of all, because these are, especially in Europe, these are countries that have nations that have let in millions of immigrants from war-torn areas in many cases, and it has caused serious problems to their society. It has caused terrorist attacks. It has caused increases in sexual harassment, rape, you name it. And it's because the cultures that these people are coming from are horrendous. But it outlines an even bigger issue. Islam itself and the radical section of Islam, which I know Islam is a gigantic religion. There's 1.5 billion Muslims around the world. I get it. Not all of them are terrorists. I know this. No rational person in the world would even begin to make an assumption like that. But I think people underestimate the amount of tolerance for radical acts of terror that live within the quote-unquote moderate Muslim community, and I think it's something that needs to be highlighted. So, in an article from InfoWars, proof: Muslims celebrated terror attack in London. Clear evidence has emerged of Muslims celebrating yesterday's Islamic terror attack in London, demolishing once again the left's contention that Islam is a quote-unquote religion of peace. A screenshot from France 24 Arabic's live video feed shows Muslim viewers reacting to the rampage with smiley faces and thumbs up. In addition, comments below the live feed video include individuals remarking, quote, God curse the infidels, and, quote, that's how the lone wolves of Allah operate. Viewers of Al Jazeera's English live video feed of the attack also reacted with mostly smiley-faced emoticons and thumbs up. And another article from InfoWars. Study: 1/3 of young Muslims in France think terrorism is acceptable. 1/3 of young Muslims in France think that terrorism is, quote, acceptable, a new study has found, with the full report being delayed until after the election because it's not, quote, politically correct. And that's literally the word they use. They say it's not politically correct. And that highlights the key fact that these people are playing politics. These people are putting politics, pandering to Muslims, pandering to Islam, above the actual safety of their own, the people that they're governing. It's absolutely heinous, it's ridiculous, and it needs to stop. Findings of the study, which canvassed the opinions of 6,828 high school students after the 2015 Paris attacks, were presented at a press conference in the French capital by researchers Oliver Galland and Anne Muxel. The results are disturbing but not surprising, given attitudes among Muslims living in European countries. And then it highlights some key points. A young Muslim is 4 times more likely to adhere to radical beliefs than a Christian. 33% of Muslim students consider it, quote, acceptable to participate in violent actions for his ideas. In other words, they are sympathetic towards terrorism. 20% of Muslim students agreed with the statement that it was, quote, acceptable to stand up for your religion with weapons. 24% of those surveyed refused to fully condemn the Charlie Hebdo killings. 21% of those surveyed refused to fully condemn the Bataclan Theater massacre, during which 89 people were killed as part of the wider November 13 Paris attacks that claimed 130 lives. It is worth emphasizing that the percentage of young Muslims who refuse to condemn Charlie Hebdo and the November 13th massacre are likely to be much higher than the numbers listed above, given that those results are representative of the entire sample, and Muslims make up just 25% of the sample. When asked if these attitudes could be due to economic and social factors or a sense of victimization, the researchers responded that, quote, membership in the Muslim religion is the most predictive factor, notes West Monster. The results were, quote, not politically correct, remarked French journalist Gervin Le Gouliac, while others at the press conference expressed concern about the timing, noting that the full report would not be released until after the election. Left-wing newspaper Le Monde slammed the researchers for, quote, opening Pandora's box by simply relating the facts of the study. However, the results are in line with previous polls, such as a 2006 Pew Global Attitude Study, which found that 42% of Muslims aged 18 to 29 thought that suicide bombings were sometimes justified. The study vindicates that the concerns of the majority of Europeans who, when asked in a recent Royal Institute of International Affairs survey, said they would like to see a total ban on Muslim immigration. And you wonder why you have someone like Marine Le Pen in France who is running on an anti-immigration campaign. It's because of stuff like this, okay? There is even among moderate Muslims, there is a unacceptably high number of them that support and say that it's okay to conduct acts of terror against other people because of your religious views. That's not a viewpoint that is compatible with Western culture, with an open and free society. That's something that you have to condemn. I mean, this guy that did this in Britain, he was born in Britain. He was a British-born guy, and he was someone who still became radicalized. So, let alone bringing in people from war-torn areas run by ISIS, where basically if you don't adhere to a extreme view of Islam, you basically get killed by the people who do. let alone bringing people like that in who clearly have a radical ideology. This is happening to people who were born in these countries and grew up in a Western culture. So the big problem here is radical Islam, the ideology of radical Islam, and it needs to be condemned. You can't have people coming out after attacks like this and saying that it's the fault of people who aren't tolerant when you're talking about the most open and free societies in the world. It's just insane. And of course, the mayor of London has basically called moderate Muslims Uncle Toms. He's come out and said that, you basically, in large cities, have to get used to having terrorist attacks. He supports, bringing in people from radical, radical Islamic countries, places like Syria and, Yemen, Libya, you name it. So you just can't have this. You can't have this attitude that it's the people who are the most tolerant, that it's their fault, first of all, and then the idea that it's people saying that this is bad, saying that it's bad that somebody kill people, that it's their fault that he killed people, and not putting the blame on the person who actually killed people. I mean, it is a completely backwards point of view that basically enables people to do acts like this. It encourages acts like this. So, I mean, it really needs to stop. I really believe it does. That's one thing that I do fully support the current United States administration when it comes to. I mean, I support it in many ways. I don't support it in others, but this is an area that I truly support it in, because radical Islamic terrorism, whether the media, whether Democrats want to admit it or not, is a serious problem ideologically, and it needs to be handled by whatever means necessary. And now we move on to an article from Politico. And this really highlights one of the key issues going on right now, and it is, of course, the Russian investigation into Donald Trump. So it's been a national controversy for quite a long time now. I don't know if you've heard of it. Apparently Donald Trump's a Russian agent. There's been a lot of smoke. There's been no fire. And one of the key people helping to provide us with credible information that there is really nothing there is the head of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes. And this article highlights a bit of a key revelation that came out earlier. So from Politico, Nunes, Trump transition team members were under surveillance during Obama administration. Members of the Donald Trump transition team, possibly including Trump himself, were under U.S. government surveillance following November's presidential election, House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes, Republican California, told reporters Wednesday. Nunes said the intelligence appeared to be legal, but that he was concerned because it was not related to the FBI's investigation into Russia's meddling in the election and was widely disseminated across the intelligence community. Quote, I have seen intelligence reports that clearly show that the president-elect and his team were, I guess, at least monitored, Nunes told reporters. It looks to me like it was all legally collected, but it was essentially a lot of information on the president-elect and his transition team and what they were doing. And what's key here is, so this is people in Trump's transition team. It's guaranteed some of these people were in Trump Tower when some of this information was being collected. So this actually validates, to a degree, what Trump said. Again, if you want to take that tweet that Trump said about the Obama wiretap in the 100% most literal way you can, sure, it probably wasn't right. If you take it as and what Trump probably meant it as, that the Obama administration was spying on, Donald Trump and members of his campaign. Well, yes, this does validate that, because they were. Now, the key thing is, and this is what, the media is running with, they're saying it's incidental, meaning that they were spying on the Russians, and all these people in Trump's transition teams got swept up in the conversations that they were involved with these Russian individuals that were being monitored, that were being spied on. So that's why they call it incidental, saying it wasn't directly monitoring those people, but because they were talking with people that were being monitored, they basically got swept up into it. But what Nunes says here is that, and he's looked through all this stuff, he says there's nothing there. He's looked through all this information that they gathered, and he says there's nothing there. There's no collusion there. There's no nothing. There's no talks with the Russians except for, some that Flynn had, which were totally legit. And yet, this information, as he says, was widely disseminated among the intelligence community, which should not have happened if there was nothing there, like he says. There's no reason to widely disseminate it if there's nothing there. So that's fishy. That's shady. And the report goes on. Nunes says he is heading to the White House later Wednesday to brief Trump on what he has learned, which he said came from, quote, sources that thought he should know it. He said he was trying to get more information on Friday from the FBI, CIA, and NSA, and of course, FBI Director Comey just came out the other day and said that there was indeed an investigation that started in July last year of people within the Trump campaign. So, all this stuff just keeps coming out, and it's starting to look worse and worse for the Obama administration. That's for sure. Nunes described the surveillance as most likely being incidental collection. This can occur when a person inside the United States communicates with a foreign target of U.S. surveillance. In such cases, the identities of U.S. citizens are supposed to be kept secret, but can be, quote, unmasked by intelligence officials under certain circumstances. Nunes said this new information appears to show that additional members of the Trump transition team, beyond former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, were unmasked. And that is key. That is very key. This means they were identified in U.S. intelligence reports. He said the information that had been disseminated across the intelligence community appeared to have little or no intelligence value. So there it is. They're spying on Trump and people within the Trump campaign, incidentally. Well, it's not clear here if Trump himself was actually being spied on. I'm sure he was. It hasn't basically officially come out. Not that I've seen, but again, I'm sure he was. And they're saying it was incidental collection, and it was because that they were caught up in calls with other foreign officials. But Nunes says there's nothing there. So okay, maybe in that case it's legit. It's okay that they were actually listening to the phone calls. Okay. But then there's no reason for it to get disseminated throughout the intelligence community because there's nothing there, like Nunes said. But then it goes even further. Then they unmask people like Michael Flynn, and he says there's more who are unmasked, which is completely illegitimate. Something that should not have been done if there was no criminal activity going on, no suspicious activity, like Nunes says. They unmask these people, which means they put their names out there, these American citizens like Michael Flynn. And then it gets even worse because people in the intelligence community are leaking this stuff to the media, including phone calls that President Trump is having with foreign leaders like the Mexican president and the Australian president. You remember that a while ago? All this stuff getting leaked to the press, and it's actually incredible. This is a really, really big scandal. And and more stuff just keeps on coming out. So we'll see where this all leads. But I mean, guaranteed, the absolute bottom line is the people that leaked that stuff, need to be brought to justice. That's completely illegitimate. Illegitimate to have unelected bureaucrats, political appointees, openly opposing the president of the United States. That's absolutely outrageous. And then on top of that, it's not even legitimate criminal activity that's going on. It's one thing if there's something actually illegal going on and it's being leaked. I think there should be whistleblower protections in some cases. But when you're just leaking stuff just simply to try to derail the presidency and, frame him as a Russian agent, that's really what this is starting to look like. There was a concerted effort to frame Donald Trump and others in his administration as a Russian agent. Completely incredible. And now we move on to another article from Bloomberg that says, that was also about Representative Nunes, saying that he was startled or alarmed by the dissemination of this intelligence, among other things. Nunes says, Trump team conversations caught in surveillance. Quote, "I'm actually alarmed by it," Nunes, a California Republican, told reporters at the Capitol. Quote, "Details with little or no apparent foreign intelligence value were widely disseminated in an intelligence community report," he said. He said he did not know if Trump's own communications were intercepted. The disclosure may bolster Trump's efforts to put up his disputed claim in Twitter postings that the Obama administration wiretapped him, which he later amended to say that his team was under surveillance. FBI Director James Comey testified before the House committee this week and said, "I have no information to support that supports those tweets." And of course, when Comey says that, he's using the literal definition of that tweet, which, as I said earlier, is probably not what Donald Trump meant in the first place. I don't think he literally meant that Obama creeped into the White House and, wiretapped his phone. And, it's ridiculous that people took it to that level and said that that's what he meant. Do I think that the president should be as clear and honest as possible, in their Twitter feed or anywhere else? Yes, of course. But does that mean I think that we should take every tweet that Donald Trump puts out there as, completely literal? Absolutely not. That's absurd. So, and again, it says here that he then later amended it to say that his team was under investigation. And the tweet aside, that's what's important, is that they were being investigated. They were being spied on. The information was disseminated throughout the intelligence community, and then it was leaked to the press. So there's a serious scandal going on here. Who knows how many people were directly involved, but there's going to be some serious problems ahead for those people. I can guarantee that. And now another story from InfoWars. This here actually lends some evidence to support a bit of a wild claim, and one that I'm not willing to rule out. Reminder, DOJ found falsely planted malware at Trump Tower designed to mimic ties to Russia. Appearing on One America News Network Tuesday, Washington Free Beacon writer Adam Credo dropped a timely reminder that fake evidence was likely planted on servers at Trump Tower to make it appear that the Trump campaign was colluding with Russian entities. Quote, "It wasn't very well reported. The Department of Justice revealed just last week, that some of those ties they had witnessed between Trump Tower servers and Russian entities, in fact, were stooged," Credo said, discussing the FBI investigation and James Comey's testimony before Congress. Quote, "What this means is that there was malware on some of these computers that was mimicking contact between these entities in what looks like an attempt to put Trump in a tight position and in fact lead claims that there was some sort of collusion," Credo noted. "The more evidence that comes out, the more we are seeing these claims were either manufactured or, like officials said today, intelligence was released in a partial fashion, and some of that intelligence, as they said on the Hill, was dead wrong, the writer added. As InfoWars reported earlier this month, the WikiLeaks Vault 7 documents revealed that this process is something the CIA has been actively working on for some time. A CIA project identified as Umbrage maintained a substantial library of Russian cyber attack techniques stolen from malware produced in other states, including the Russian Federation. And it's key to remember here that these leaks, these CIA documents that came from WikiLeaks, have not been proven false whatsoever. And hate WikiLeaks or love WikiLeaks, the stuff that they put out there is accurate. And they've got a very good track record of being very credible. So you can't just dismiss this stuff. I mean, you really have to look at it seriously. And there was all kinds of crazy stuff. And of course, there's more, of the Vault 7 stuff coming out. I think just today, even, or yesterday, there was more that came out. I haven't really got a chance to look at it yet. But what came out with the first set of the Vault 7 leaks is that, among other things, the CIA used smart technology, like smart TVs and smart appliances and, the little Alexa device and whatever, all that kind of stuff to gather information on people, basically to spy on people, in some cases actually listening to conversations in real time. And, this really is something that a lot of people have known, but a lot of people don't know this kind of stuff. And, it's a big deal. But another thing that came out in the Vault 7 was, of course, that the CIA gets malware from, areas of Russia and then actually uses it to false flag cyber attacks as Russia. So, I mean, just completely incredible. Hey, if you're naive enough to believe that our own government, criminal elements at least of our own government, wouldn't do stuff like that, then, I got a bridge I'd like to sell you. But anyways, it moves on. It goes on, rather. Reports dating back to last September indicated that computer experts working for the U.S. government identified what they thought was malware emanating from Russia. One destination domain, TrumpEmail.com, stuck out because the conspiracy theory of Trump colluding with Russia was already being heavily floated by Hillary operatives and parroted by the mainstream media. The malware appeared to have been connected to two Russian banks, Alpha Bank and SVB Bank, and was suggested to be proof of secretive communications or possible illegal banking activity. Many believe that this spurred the Obama administration to obtain FISA permission to conduct electronic surveillance directed at the, quote, Russians, the Ruskies, and communicating with Trump Tower. In other words, there is no significant evidence to suggest that the CIA could have planted information as a means of, there is significant evidence to suggest that the CIA could have planted information as a means of deceiving the NSA into believing Trump and Russian entities were communicating. And let me remind you, the acting director of the CIA at that time was a guy named John Brennan, who had openly come out in statements and said that some of Trump's policies were un-American. I mean, he was absolutely opposed to Donald Trump openly, which, when you're in one of those positions, you're supposed to be bipartisan in your rhetoric, at least. You're not supposed to openly come out and be for one side or the other. So it was really, almost unprecedented for the acting director of the CIA to come out and say things like that. So this is a CIA director who did not like Trump. He was very clear about that. And that definitely helps, add to the theory that maybe all this Russian stuff, the stuff with the servers at Trump Tower, maybe it was a false flag. Maybe it was set up by the CIA to, make it look like there was some kind of collusion and actually be able to open up the investigation. I mean, again, who knows? But the source of this stuff is from WikiLeaks. Again, hate them or love them, they're credible. They've got a good track record. They've put out credible information targeting both Republican and Democratic administrations. So it's not just something you can quickly dismiss away. And, you know, who knows where this all will lead, but definitely it's looking like there was no collusion. I mean, so for anybody who thought that Donald Trump was a Russian agent, it should be perfectly clear to you by now that there was nothing going on. The head of the House Intelligence Committee has said there was nothing there. The former DNI, James Clapper, came out and said that there was nothing there. Comey has said that he's seen no collusion. If there's something there, if there was something there, it would have came out already. All right? There's nothing there. And it's starting to look more and more, the real criminal activity, the stuff that was going on in the Obama administration, is starting to be put to light. And that's really what needs to be happening. That's what needs to happen. We need to find out the extent to which people in the Obama administration were involved in this. We need to see how far-reaching this was and exactly how much illegal activity went on. And hopefully some heads roll politically. Because there is... The guillotine is thirsty, let's say. And now we move on to an article from Conservative Review. And so Neil Gorsuch, the awesome, amazing Trump pick for Supreme Court, for a lot of people, who Trump picked for the Supreme Court was a big test. It was a big test for a lot of people, me included. And he passed it, with an A+. I mean, Neil Gorsuch is an amazing pick. He's an originalist, in his interpretation of the Constitution, and he applies the law accordingly. And Democrats or certain Democrats, liberals, they're not too fond of the Constitution. Let's just put it that way. So he's going through his confirmation hearings right now, and Democrats are just grilling this guy. I mean, he's got an amazing record, and he had bipartisan support when he went to the appellate court in 2006, I believe. Yeah, in 2006, he got confirmed. He was appointed by George W. Bush, and he was confirmed unanimously by a Senate that included Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama, and I mean a bunch of other people. So it's ridiculous that now they're coming at him and saying that, he's this horrible partisan Republican pick, and, they use words like he's not mainstream enough, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean. So, anyways, he's getting grilled by all these Democrats, and he's just, he's really a very intelligent guy, and some of the comebacks and responses that he had were just epic. I mean, he was wiping the floor with these people. It was really a sight to see, and one of the key moments this article highlighted, and I wanted to let you guys get a chance to experience this for yourself. So, from Conservative Review, nothing but the law. Gorsuch owns Feinstein on how SCOTUS actually works. It doesn't matter what he personally believes about cases. Neil Gorsuch is here to examine the law, is here to examine what the law says, an amicable yet telling exchange before the Judiciary Committee, Tuesday morning revealed. In his Supreme Court confirmation hearing, Trump's pick to replace Justice Antonin Scalia made his views very clear, with the answers he didn't give more than the answers he did. During her question, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Republican California, a ranking member of the committee, pressed the 10th Circuit Court jurist on one of the most consequential Second Amendment cases in recent history, D.C. versus Heller. But if she was looking for a gotcha moment to paint Gorsuch as some kind of jurisprudential gun nut, she ended up coming away empty-handed. And then here is the exchange. Feinstein says, in D.C. versus Heller, the majority opinion written by Justice Scalia recognized that, and I'm quoting, of course, the Second Amendment was not unlimited. Justice Scalia wrote, for example, laws restricting access to guns by the mentally ill or laws forbidding gun possession in schools were consistent with the limited nature of the Second Amendment. Justice Scalia also wrote that, quote, weapons that are most useful in military service, M16 rifles and the like, may be banned without infringing the Second Amendment. Do you agree with that statement? That under the Second Amendment, weapons that are most useful in military service, M16 rifles and the like, may be banned. Senator Gorsuch says, Heller makes clear the standard that we judges are supposed to apply. The question is whether it is a gun in common use for the self-defense, and that may be subject to reasonable regulation. That's the test as I understand it. There's lots of ongoing litigation about which weapons qualify under those standards, and I can't prejudge the litigation. Feinstein, I'm just asking, do you agree with the statement, yes or no? And this is where it gets good. Gorsuch, whatever is in Heller is the law, and I follow the law. Feinstein, do you agree? Gorsuch, it's not a matter of disagreeing or agreeing, Senator, respectfully. It's a matter of it being the law, and my job is to apply and enforce the law. And I mean, it was really an epic moment, and that's so key, because when you look at what's going on right now with the travel bans that are being blocked by these judges, agree or disagree with the travel ban, the President of the United States clearly has the authorization and the authority to ban immigration in certain cases if there is detriment to the United States. I mean, the law is very clear. Literally, a child could read it and understand it. I've read it before in my previous videos. The law is extremely clear. And it is not a Muslim ban for the millionth time. If it is a Muslim ban, then it does a really bad job, because something like 80% of the Muslims in the world can still travel here. But the point is that we've got judicial activism going on, and it's fully supported by liberals. And it's a problem, because the people that are in that branch of government, judges are only supposed to judge the law. They're not there to make law. They're not there to judge the law as they would like it to be. They're there to judge the law as it is. And that's all they're there to do. And it is so reassuring to see that we're going to have somebody like Neil Gorsuch get confirmed onto as a Supreme Court justice. I mean, this will help to actually protect our constitutional rights, and it's definitely amazing. And look, he's getting thrown through the ringer by all these people. It's completely ridiculous. The Democrats, Chuck Schumer basically said that we can't confirm a judge until the Russian cloud is isn't over Trump's head anymore. The cloud of absolutely nothing that they created. So it's absolutely insane. They're basically saying that they're not going to confirm Gorsuch no matter what, when he's got a amazing record of following the law, exactly what you want a judge to do. And Democrats and some Republicans just don't seem to like that very much. And he is a perfect pick to be Supreme Court. He's exactly what Trump promised he was going to do, and he got confirmed in 2006 by a Senate that, unanimously in 2006 by a Senate that included Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer, who now says we can't approve this guy. So what's going on right now is obstructionism. These people are being obstructionists. They're saying that we're putting our own partisan politics in front of doing what's right for the American people. And there's there's a tool that the Senate can use. So basically, what's going to need to happen is normally a Supreme Court justice would need 60 votes out of the 100 votes. Out of the 100 senators, he would need 60 votes to be able to get appointed to actually become a Supreme Court justice. We have 52 Republican senators. What they can do is something called the nuclear option, which would make it to where it would only require the 52 senators to vote to confirm, Gorsuch as the Supreme Court nominee, or to make him the Supreme Court justice. And Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, is the guy who has the capability to do that, and voters need to hold, and representatives, everyone else needs to hold his feet to the fire, because it's probably going to come down to needing to be the nuclear option. So Mitch, just push the red button. It must be done, because again, this is obstructionism. What's going on is these people putting their own politics in front of what's good for the American people. And this is, if this situation isn't what the nuclear option was meant for, then there's no need to even have the nuclear option. So, hopefully Neil Gorsuch will be confirmed, and he will definitely be an awesome Supreme Court justice. And now we move on to an article from Reuters detailing a little bit of the terrible, absolutely terrible Republican healthcare bill, the American Healthcare Act, which is absolutely garbage. It is not a replacement for Obamacare. It's basically Obamacare 2.0, Obamacare Light. It gets rid of some portions of Obamacare and then keeps massive portions of Obamacare and then changes some things that are actually worse than Obamacare. It's ridiculous. And it actually somehow, some way, just got even worse. From Reuters, immigration provision cut from Obamacare rollback angering conservatives. Some conservatives in Washington were fuming on Tuesday after an Obamacare rollback bill was tweaked by Republican leaders to delete a provision meant to crack down on illegal immigrants getting federal health care insurance coverage. The development posed another problem for the Republican leaders in the U.S. House of Representatives and President Donald Trump, who are trying to win congressional approval of the wider bill, the first big legislative test for Trump since taking office. The provision would have allowed the Treasury Department to access data at the Department of Homeland Security to verify that healthcare tax credits went only to U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents, not illegal immigrants. So, yeah, they make it to where it's going to be easier for illegal immigrants to actually get on Obama, or the American Healthcare Act, Obamacare 2.0, basically. So they make it, easier for illegal immigrants to get on, and then it gets even worse somehow. From the Washington Examiner, millions of veterans could be ineligible to receive tax credits under Republican healthcare plan. Oh yeah, that's right. They do something that prioritizes illegal immigrants while screwing over veterans. What is going on? I mean, this is insane. In the struggle to overhaul Obamacare, House Republicans appear to have made a costly overcorrection due to a technical change in the current draft of the bill. Millions of veterans may be ineligible to receive tax credits. Smooth move, guys. Late Monday night, leadership staff released a 22-page technical amendment to the bill in order to make it compliant with Senate reconciliation rules. In their haste, they introduced language that could keep as many as 7 million veterans from participating in the GOP healthcare plan. Now, retired service members qualify only if they are, quote, are not eligible for other types of government health care, according to Chris Jacobs, a senior healthcare analyst at the Texas Public Policy Foundation and CEO of Jupiter Research Group. That means, quote, individuals eligible for but not enrolled in VA coverage cannot qualify for the new insurance subsidies. So good job, guys. Good job. While trying to ram this bill through, you make it easier for illegal immigrants to get on your new healthcare act. rhino care, and you make it, you screw over veterans. And obviously, I'm sure this, I mean, I would hope that this wasn't done on purpose, neither of these, but it highlights the bigger issue. The bigger issue is that they're trying to ram through a bill that is crap and saying that the sky is going to fall if it doesn't happen. It's total BS. It's total BS. This thing needs to be repealed. It needs to be completely shot down in flames. Obamacare needs to be completely repealed, is what I mean. And we can work from there on improving the free market healthcare system. Well, I had a bit of a technical difficulty there, but I am back now. So, where I left off is I was saying that with the American Health Care Act, this new bill that's being put forward, in their haste to push it forward, they cut a provision that would have made it more difficult for illegal immigrants to get on this healthcare program, to qualify for healthcare, and it actually did something that made it more difficult for veterans to get tax credits. So it literally benefits, they did something that benefits illegal immigrants and hurts veterans, of all people. I mean, not a good move by any stretch of the imagination, especially when you look at how pro-military, Trump was throughout the campaign. And I don't think this was done on purpose, but it happened, and it shows that in their haste to push this bill, they got some really crappy stuff going on in there. So, it's a problem, and the good news is it seems like there's probably not going to be the votes for it. So this is from Breitbart. Exclusive. Rand Paul, easily 35 no votes against Paul Ryan's Obamacare 2.0. I would predict they pull the bill, start over. And that actually did happen. The bill got delayed right now, so they didn't pull the bill. I wish so that didn't happen, but the bill got delayed actually, because today was going to be the day they were going to vote on it, and they probably weren't going to have the votes, so they actually decided to move it forward and try to make some change and tweaks to it or whatever. Senator Rand Paul, Republican Kentucky, told Breitbart News exclusively on Tuesday afternoon that he expects House Speaker Paul Ryan will be forced to pull the American Health Care Act before a scheduled Thursday vote because Ryan will not get the votes to pass the legislation. The AHCA has been dubbed Obamacare Light by Paul, a leading conservative critic of the plan, and by other conservatives as RyanCare, RhinoCare, and Obamacare 2.0, since the bill does not actually fully repeal Obamacare and keeps many of its main structures that the now former President Barack Obama installed in the healthcare system. It has come under intense scrutiny from both sides of the Republican Party. Moderates and conservatives are lining up against the bill, and Ryan, despite publicly projecting confidence, cannot find the necessary 216 votes to pass the legislation. And yeah, they delayed it because they weren't going to have the votes, and they're going to try to make some tweaks and some changes to it, and they may make it better. They might do that. At this point, because they put this monstrosity forward, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the GOP establishment in being able to do what needs to be done. So I think we really need to highlight these senators and representatives that have come forward and said that they oppose this bill, because that's definitely the right decision. And these, we need to support these senators and representatives that want to have a full, proper repeal and to move forward from there, because that would be the best thing for everybody. And the healthcare system is in dire straits. It's on a very bad road. It's heading towards either a massive bailout or a single-payer system. And this bill, the American Health Care Act, is really, in my view, only going to help accelerate the destruction of the healthcare system. So, it's good to see that they had to delay this thing, and hopefully the Republicans can get together, the GOP can get together, hopefully they can do the right thing, which is a clean repeal. So with that, now we move on to another story. This here is from the Daily Wire, and this illustrates some of the absolute insanity coming from the anti-Trump movement and you may be shocked to see how far that movement has spread and into what areas of our society. So, from the Daily Wire, remember that Secret Service agent who said she wouldn't take a bullet for Trump? She just got demoted. Yeah, so seriously, a Secret Service agent, she came out, she posted on Facebook that basically she wouldn't take a bullet for Trump. Well, she's working in the Secret Service. I mean, that's kinda in the job description, lady. So, a high-ranking Secret Service agent has been demoted after insisting she wouldn't take a bullet for President Trump. Carrie O'Grady used to be a special agent in charge for the U.S. Secret Service District Office in Denver. In her capacity as a special agent, she was responsible for coordinating presidential visits to Denver with the Washington-based advance teams. But after posting a rant on Facebook detailing how much she would rather serve jail time than take a bullet for Trump, she was, quote, removed from a Secret Service member association, the Association of Former Secret Service Agents, and she was placed on paid administrative leave, according to Town Hall. Well, O'Grady hasn't been fired yet. Her unprofessional comments may violate the Hatch Act, which says, quote, in that 1939 law bars certain federal employees from engaging in political activity to promote fairness and nonpartisanship within the workplace, notes Fox News. The act applies to Secret Service, among other federal agencies. And I mean, it doesn't matter what your personal politics are when you're, working in the Secret Service. It's your job to protect the president. I mean, most people probably don't like their boss, all right? And listen, most of us didn't sign up, for a job where you are literally supposed to take a bullet for that person if it comes down to it. So of course you go out and say something like that on Facebook. And she was a pretty high level person in the Secret Service, too. So, I mean, this just goes to show the level of, insurrection, really, you've got going on in the government right now. You've got people at all levels, across the board, people who are held over from the last administration, people outside of government even, all basically openly against Donald Trump as the president. And it's a problem. It's a serious problem. And it's good to see, the hammer get dropped on someone like this. I mean, you just can't get away with saying something like that when you work in the Secret Service. Sorry. And now we move on to an article from CNN. And this highlights a very conservative principle that I would like to point out. So some of the funding for Meals on Wheels got cut. Everybody freaked out. Everybody was saying Donald Trump's trying to murder old people, basically. And one thing I don't think a lot of these people knew is that the block grant program that got cut was a grant that goes to the states, and then the states chose to use some of that money for Meals on Wheels in some cases. And that amount that they chose to use from those block grants was less than 3% of the entire amount of funding for Meals on Wheels. So when people say, oh, they cut the funding for Meals on Wheels, yeah, it was 3%, and it was a block grant that the states chose to put towards that. It wasn't direct funding to that. That was cut, first of all, and it was less than 3%. So there was a lot of misconception. There was a lot of misunderstanding there. Misconceptions being thrown around, people just being hysterical, as usual. And I want to highlight, people were saying it was just so heartless and cruel when those block programs have been targeted as, wasteful, fraudulent, and abusive. And, it's been proven that in a lot of times that money doesn't even go towards helping the poor. So it was good that these programs were cut. And this story highlights how conservatives and conservative principles are not heartless and they're not cruel, and how actually, communities and local individuals coming together, it really is the answer. So this is from CNN, of all places. Meals on Wheels donations, volunteer signups soar after Trump eyes cuts. Well, would you look at that? Meals on Wheels received 50 times the amount of daily donations on Thursday after the White House proposed cuts to some of the program's sources of funding, a spokesperson for the group said. Volunteer signups also jumped, increasing by 500%, according to Jenny Bertolet, a spokeswoman for Meals on Wheels America. Bertolet said the support to the National Meals on Wheels office has been, quote, amazing and very overwhelming. Several local Meals on Wheels organizations said they had received similar support. Metro Meals on Wheels, which covers Minneapolis and St. Paul, said the group received about 40 donations in the past 24 hours, well over the usual average of 3 or 4 donations a day. Quote, the good news is that it rallied folks around the cause and reminded folks that they can't really take these kinds of services for granted, said Patrick Rowan, executive director of Metro Meals on Wheels. It's reassuring that the public has stepped up, quote unquote. Similarly, Ellen Horwitz of Meals on Wheels of West Los Angeles said there has been an abundance of people calling in the last 2 days saying, can we help? The outpouring of support comes shortly after the White House budget blueprint suggested eliminating the $3 billion Community Development Block Grant Program and cutting funding to the Department of Health and Human Services. And again, there was a lot of misuse of the funds that was going there, and I think this illustrates beautifully that when people come together through charities, through local organizations and communities, that it has a much greater effect when it comes to actually helping people than the government ever could do. And that is the principle that conservatives have, okay? It's not that we want people to lose out on something from the government. It's that what the government provides is never as good, even close, as what communities and individuals can provide through their own charitable free will and sense of morals. So, I think it's wonderful that this is happening. This is great, and it highlights that when there is a moral gap to fill, the American people, who people like Bernie Sanders come out and say that the American people basically aren't charitable and aren't good, and that we aren't as good as other countries when it comes to helping out the poor. It's a load of BS. It totally is. And stuff like this beautifully demonstrates that, I think, in my point of view. So now I want to move on to my final story for the day, and it's a bit of a doozy. So Kim Jong-un has been running around like the crazy little dictator tyrant that he is, saying that he's going to nuke everybody and blow up the United States and be the ruler of the world. And he is basically a crazy little lunatic man who rules over a bunch of starving people. And he is a total 100% joke. And it was highlighted. It was on full display as this happened. So, Kim missile flops. Kim Jong-un oh, this was from The Sun, by the way. Kim Jong-un humiliated as missile explodes on launch pad a day after despot boasted North Korea is, quote, ready for war. Sounds like you're ready to go back to the drawing board. Kim Jong-un suffered stage fright when his latest missile test exploded just seconds after launching. The North Korean tyrant continued his show of saber rattling earlier this morning with the latest in a series of ballistic missile tests. But U.S. military chiefs confirmed Kim's rocket had erupted into a ball of flames moments after takeoff. U.S. Commander Dave Benham said, quote, U.S. Pacific Command detected what we assessed was a failed North Korean missile launch attempt. Quote, a missile appears to have exploded within seconds of launch. South Korean officials confirmed it had also tracked the rocket just a fortnight after Kim's regime successfully tested 4 missiles. The 5th time was not the charm, apparently. It responded by launching Air Force drills with the U.S. over the Korean peninsula this morning. Its secretive northern harbor has made no secret of its bid to fit nuclear warheads to missiles capable of reaching the U.S. Only yesterday, it stepped up its war of words with the U.S. by declaring, quote, we're ready for war. An official A state official roared that Pyongyang has, quote, the will and the capability for conflict with Donald Trump's America. So, complete, delusions of grandeur going on there. I mean, he is completely just the definition, the caricature of a complete, out of touch, just spoiled, hereditary dictator that couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag, running around saying that he's going to nuke everybody, and then has, a missile blow up on the frickin' launch pad. So, what a joke. What a joke. What a joke. And, I've heard some people say that maybe this was the United States that actually interfered with this and made this be a failure. Who knows? Either way, it's a giant, spectacular fail for Kim Jong-un, and you can only get away with saying you're going to nuke people for so long. And like Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, said, the policy of strategic patience basically is over. And they've said that they're willing, all options are on the table, including a first strike. We've got nuclear bombers stationed in South Korea. We've got, Navy SEALs or special ops people stationed there ready to take out the leadership of North Korea. I mean, basically all it's going to take is the right word from the right person, and the little fat man in Pyongyang and anybody else who is deemed a real threat would be taken out. I mean, just like that. So North Korea is not a threat. They're really not. They can run around talking about nuking everybody all day long. They would maybe be able to do some damage to South Korea. Maybe they'd be able to hit, Japan or something. Some people say that they could possibly do an EMP. I mean, I doubt it. Look, they wouldn't be able to even get that far. They wouldn't be able to get to the point where they actually deployed some kind of technology like that. Like I said, our military right now is ready to take Kim Jong-un and whoever else needs to be taken out at the drop of a dime, basically. And it's unfortunate that it might need to come down to that, but at this point, you've got this guy talking about nuking people. He's launching missiles every other day, launching missiles at Japan, saying he'll nuke the United States if we do anything. At some point, you got to deal with the situation. So, Kim Jong-un, where is Team America when you need them? Maybe they'll pop by and, save the world for us. And, Kim Jong-un can fly off in his little rocket ship, the little tiny cockroach that he is. So with that, I hope that you guys all enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Leave a comment if you've got any suggestions, anything you'd like to hear me talk about, or anything of the sort. Again, hope you enjoyed this video. And, please come back for more. If you want to follow me on Facebook or Twitter, or listen to the audio version of this on SoundCloud, or if you're on SoundCloud and want to hear the video version on YouTube, all the proper links will be in the description. So again, have a wonderful day, and may the force be with you.